Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. FPL Vincenzo here, and this week heading into game week 6, I thought I'd do a little bit of a sort of a slightly different pod really, because I've seen a lot of content this week and quite a lot of people have activated their wildcard obviously a week after me, and lots of the drafts are looking incredibly similar. And there's been a big shift, I think, in the types of players that people are now realising they want. And I think there's a genuine risk here that FPL could become quite boring and very template. And I say the types of players that people are now looking at aren't the biggest upside players. There's a big focus and a big direction here towards secure points, safe points, sort of high floor players, as we call them, and less of a sort of focus towards those higher upside players, those players that could score hat tricks and 20 pointers and things like that. People are sacrificing those in favor of those that get 4 or 5 points every week. And I'm not denying, I'm not doubting that could be the best way to get points over a whole season of FPL, but it kind of does take away the fun out of it for me. So this pod's going to touch on sort of all of that, where I sort of stand on all of that, how I think you can go against all of that and compete against that. Because what I don't want to happen here really is we become, or the game becomes basically set and roll every week. And I think it's very easy at the moment to pick defenders that have got 4-point floors most week. Defenders are very focused on getting defensive contributions and extra DEFCON points. I think there's a growing number of midfielders that are also becoming quite reliable for that. And I feel like if you pick a team in a certain way, you're almost picking a dead team here. You're going to be in a position where you have 5 defenders, all with a focus on DEFCON, not defenders who might get sort of a higher quantity of attacking returns, because those are so sporadic and so inconsistent. The DEFCON points are better. Now there's midfielders that are following a similar pathway. And once you bring those players in and you're picking up those reliable points, 4 or 5 points a week from them, I think they're quite hard to sell. I'm not saying you'll never sell them, but those players are, you pick them on the understanding that you pick them, you play them every week, you get what you get, and over the season you'll be rewarded with a healthy points total. But if you've got 7 or 8 players that are of that persuasion, shall we say, that where are you going to make your transfers? All you're going to do is roll every week. There's no decision to make because you've probably got one de facto standout captain, so that person is the captain every week. Your 7 or 8 players I'm going to call DEFCON picks get picked every week. You might have one 50-50 decision amongst 2 attacking players or something. Which one's got the higher ceiling? I'll play them and bench the other one. Is that really what we want FPL to become? Is there going to be much fun recording content every week? Is there going to be much fun listening to content every week? Is there going to be that much fun being actively involved in the game every week if you've got no decisions to make, no transfer to make, no captaincy decision, no headaches of do I play 3 at the back, do I play 4 at the back, because your team is set and those players you've bought are almost fixed. So I was struggling with what to call this pod. I didn't want to call it "Is FPL Becoming Boring?" because it's obviously not the most dynamic title and it's a bit miserable. But I've gone for the game now that this isn't an 11-a-side game anymore. And maybe it wasn't an 11-a-side game to start with, because certain players like Salah in the past, maybe likes of Gabriel in the past, you did just pick them and play them every week. So loosely, they were set and forget picks. But it wasn't to the level that these players are now. The likes of, like, everyone's got Senesi in their team. Everyone's got looking at Joachim Anderson, things like that. These players are different level in terms of set and forget dynamic, playing them every week. People won't have any concern now playing one of these DEFCON defenders away to Liverpool, away to Man City. We wouldn't have been picking centre-backs in those fixtures in the past. We might have even considered benching a high upside fullback, a Daniel Munoz or something, away to Liverpool in the past because the fixture wasn't good enough. The game has changed, and I think DEFCON points have changed the game. Maybe not for the best. I think it's fair to say from the short sample we have. But we don't want the game to become nothing. And I think now we're kind of reducing it to a game of five-a-side, because I think that's the middle ground here, that you don't go full DEFCON, but I think you have to appreciate and accept that these DEFCON picks are steady. There are 5.5 million, 5 million assets who are pretty much locked in to get 150 points. And if you're getting that value for money from those players, that's really good. You just play them every week and leave them. But the opportunity here and the way to differentiate yourself, how to take on the template, is to look at ways where we can see opportunity to go against it. I'm going to try and do a bit of that in this pod. So the intro here has been a bit long. Apologies. So we'll move on now to what I'm thinking. So here's the defenders. And I can see the logic here very much in focusing on DEFCON. Some helpful screenshots I've taken here from Tom Hadley's Twitter profile, who's very much locked in on DEFCON and does quite a lot of good content and posts around DEFCON. And he's highlighted here Michele of Sunderland, Senesi of Bournemouth, and Tarkowski have achieved DEFCON in 100% of their games so far. So 5 fixtures, if they all played them all, you've already got a guaranteed sort of 10 points in DEFCON contributions. You pretty much guaranteed 2 points from playing 60 minutes. They're 4-point floors every week, these players. Obviously, if they get a yellow card or concede too many goals, they'll have a slight deduction. But obviously, if they get clean sheets or an attacking return, it's an increase. But a 4-point floor is not to be sniffed at. And if, say, particularly the likes of Senesi and Tarkowski, no Europe or anything like that, if they're going to play 38 league games, getting 4 points a game average, that's 152 points. In Senesi's case, 4.7, 4.8, whatever he is now, it was 4.5 to start. That's an incredible level of return for that price point, 150 points. I can see why he's, I won't use the word essential, but I can see why he's in everyone's team. And I made a little table over here on the opposite side, looking at points so far. And Senesi is the second highest scoring defender in the game. 37 points for the 5 appearances, the 10 DEFCON points. He's also nabbed an assist and got 3 clean sheets. Now, that might not be sustainable for Bournemouth, a run of 3 clean sheets in 5. But even if that drops off a bit, he's still going to be averaging a very healthy points total per game. And look at what sort of other attacking defenders are having to do to match him. Calafiori's behind him. Same number of clean sheets as Senesi. You'd expect Arsenal over a season to keep more clean sheets than Bournemouth. But even though Calafiori's got a goal and 2 assists so far, which is 3 attacking returns in 5 games, is a great output for a defender, he still can't match Senesi. And I don't think any defender is going to sort of really average a return every other game. Sort of getting even 10, 12 attacking returns for a defender, I think is good going. That's 1 every 3 games. And I think for most, you're looking at a return sort of more like 1 every 4. I think is realistic. 1 every 3, I think for the more attacking guys is plausible. Anything more than that, I think is sort of high end in terms of output. So for defenders, an attacking defender, a Calafiori, a Munoz, someone like that is getting, should we say, an attacking return 1 every 3 game weeks. They're not going to be able to match these DEFCON guys. Senesi, others here, Tarkowski doing quite well. Matched Munoz so far, despite not really doing anything apart from keeping 2 clean sheets in 5. That probably is sustainable for Tarkowski, I would think. 40% clean sheet return for Everton over a season. I think you can loosely think that's achievable. So if he's getting DEFCON every week as well, he's matching Munoz, who's probably got a higher volume of clean sheets and still managed to get an assist in the first 4 or 5 weeks. So these attacking defenders, I think, are really hard to pick. And I think the decision really now amongst defenders, whether on wildcard or whether setting your team up for the longer term with free transfers, I think you have to focus on the DEFCON guys in defence. And your only real decision really is, 1, how much you're prepared to spend on them, because there are defenders at cheaper price points that can do it. And how many are you kind of locking yourself into play every week? I think it's more than valid if you want to go full high floor and full sort of protect your rank sort of position. I don't think it's a bad thing to play 5 at the back. If you're getting 5 defenders here, all getting 4 points every game, maybe a couple of them will get a clean sheet each week as well. Maybe you'll get 1 attacking return. You'll be getting a very healthy return from 5 defenders. I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the season, this becomes quite normal. And obviously, in terms of points per million value. These guys are incredible value. Getting a 4 million defender, Michele getting DEFCON every week, Senesi at 4.5, Chris Richards doing well at Palace around 4.5, Joachim Anderson at Fulham 4.5. These guys are picking up 4 or 5 points a week for the minimum cost. If that allows you 2 or 3 premium attackers balanced out against these, you're not going to compete with that. So I think this is the headache and the decision for most people. Now, naturally, instinct says play a back three. I think we certainly have to be of a mindset now that playing more than 3 often is a good idea. Many people may initially jump to 4 and think I can just about tolerate playing 4 at the back. 5 is pushing it. That's not the game. But I think it's rapidly becoming the game because of the way the points are this year. So I think mid-term 5-3-2, 5-4-1 is the way forward. If you want this high floor every week. And you'll probably finish, I reckon, in the top 100k. If you go in now with a fairly, what I'll call dead team, 5-4-1 every week, stick Haaland up front, pick 5 of these DEFCON guys, and in midfield, mix it up between DEFCON guys and maybe higher ceiling players, you'll be finishing in the top 100k because you'll constantly get healthy points totals each week backed up by these guys. You'll be picking plenty of more. If you try and play 4-3-3 or 3-5-2, whatever it's going to be, pick less of these guys and maybe higher ceiling midfielders. Your higher ceiling midfielders will have many weeks where they get 2 points. Gyökeres so far seems to be sort of hit and miss in terms of how many points he's getting. You're paying 9 million for someone that's getting 2 points. Look at the Villa guys with Owen Rodgers, 2 points a game. Watkins, 2 points a game. These guys are giving you 4 points plus a game. And those attacking players, even Rodgers, even if he bucked his ideas up and started to do better, over a block of 6-8 game weeks, is he going to average 4 points a game? Because he's still going to have games where he gets 2 points. So, and he cost not far off double what some of these guys cost. So this is the way, I think, to maximize your floor. And again, depends what you're playing for. Whether you want top 100k finish to win a mini league or whether you've got higher aspirations than that. One thing to note here, though, is the alternate view box I've just put at the bottom here, that the top 13 point scoring defenders so far, only 2 of them, which is Senesi and Burton, who are both on the slide, have got more than 4 DEFCON points. So in blocks of games, so we've had 5 game weeks so far, in blocks of games, non-DEFCON picks, as I'll call them, can outscore DEFCON picks. So Calafiori being an example here, really good start to the season. Arsenal 3 clean sheets. His minutes have maybe been more secure than we expected. He's had a good run for attacking returns. Maybe in the next block of games, it will be Livramento that does this. In the block after that, it might be Frimpong that does this. Ait Nouri, people like that. There are defenders out there that are taking up attacking roles in their team and in good teams that can still keep high volumes of clean sheets. That for blocks of games, you could be getting more points than the DEFCON. The DEFCON guys are picks to hold and assess over 12 weeks, 16 weeks. And I think this is going to be the game now, and how you take on the template is identifying positions and roles where you drop a DEFCON guy and you take a punt, and that punt comes off, i.e. Calafiori for this first block, even Chalobah for this first block, who's not purely a DEFCON guy. Only 2 games so far. He's got it out of 5, but he scored 2 goals. You need some luck here in this next one. Will it be Gabriel? I've seen him in a lot of content creator wildcard drafts this week. Purely for a 6 million outlay, he's no better than a Tarkowski for 0.5 cheaper, even Senesi for $1 million cheaper. I think if you come back and review this at the end of the year, I think Senesi and Gabriel will be very close on points because Gabriel doesn't get DEFCON a lot. Senesi gets it all the time. Gabriel will get more clean sheets than Senesi to help balance it out. But for the $1.5 million difference you're spending in price, I think you're going to end up with a similar points total. But if you have Gabriel for the right run, there might be a 5-6 game week stretch where he maybe gets 2 attacking returns and gets 5 clean sheets or something. Then he's going to outscore Senesi over those blocks. And that's going to be the game now. That's the challenge, is a bit of luck needed, a bit of good variance needed. That you go off template with high upside picks, particularly those defenders with goal threat. So Van Dijk, Gabriel. Again, I don't think these defenders over a season will match many of the cheaper DEFCON guys, but for blocks of games, they could outdo them. So I'll say something to bear in mind there. On to midfielders, and Tom again has shared us some DEFCON points for midfielders. And I think notable here is we're now coming into a point where it's not purely the defensive midfielders that are getting DEFCON. So I think there was an expectation and a logic that those midfielders that play deeper are doing more defensive things, making clearances, winning tackles. Therefore, they're more likely to meet the threshold to get the DEFCON extra 2 points. So no surprise to see someone like Caicedo doing very well. And you can see so far he's had a game where he got 23 DEFCON contributions, a 17, a 15, a 12. He's getting it quite often. Points total been boosted so far by 2 goals, which was maybe unexpected. But someone like him is going to be another steady pick. Another player that costs around 5.5 million. It's probably got a bit like Tarkowski and guys like that are going to get you 150 points. Elliot Anderson at the moment has played 2 league games under Ange Postecoglou, got DEFCON in both of them. Before that, was right on the threshold basically every game and just short. But new system now, maybe a slightly adapted role. He's now getting DEFCON regular. Also got it in the European game this week, even though obviously that doesn't count. But people counting the DEFCON contributions, he would have got it again. So again, someone like him, 5.5 million. Yeah, put him in your team as an every week player. Take your 150 points at the end of the season and be grateful. And if they go on a run of extra goals, that's really good. The development, I think, here, maybe the slight surprise is that there are midfielders right now with higher attacking capabilities than these guys. Like Anderson's more box to box. He's not purely a 6. Caicedo does get forward a bit. But there's genuinely what you'd call attacking midfielders that are getting it. So Ilmian Ndiaye is probably the best one here from Everton. 14 and 12 in the last 2 weeks. Higher work rate from his wide position. Taking penalties. 3 returns in 5 is a little bit of overperformance. 2 goals is probably a little bit of overperformance. His XGI is only 1.72. But you've got a player here taking penalties, playing a lot of minutes, no Europe, so you expect him to carry on playing minutes. Decent goal threat. I'm not saying his team's incredible in terms of attacking capability, but reasonable. And he's getting the extra assistance of even if a week doesn't get anything attacking-wise, he still might get 2 DEFCON points. Good example last week was Jorginho Rutter in Brighton game. He got an assist. That's pretty good. He ended up with 5 points, I think, for his assist and his appearance. Antoine Semenyo in Bournemouth Newcastle, obviously that game finished 0-0. He also got DEFCON last week. You can see at the top 14 DEFCON contributions, and Bournemouth kept a clean sheet, worth another point. He matched he matched Rutter. Both of them ended the game week on 5 points. Rutter got an assist, which is obviously what you pick an attacking player to do. Semenyo did some good defensive work, made some clearances. His team kept a clean sheet. He also got 5 points. Also with a way higher ceiling, outscoring that. So if you're getting attacking midfielders that might take... So if you look at something like Bruno, Ndiaye and Semenyo as a midfield 3, if you set up now to play 5-3-2, we've said about 5 DEFCON defenders, you can put those 3 in midfield. As far as we are aware at the moment, Semenyo's on penalties. So we've got Semenyo, Bruno, Ndiaye, all 3 of them taking penalties. All 3 of them, you certainly wouldn't call them defensive players. They're all likely to be involved in attack, combination of goals and assist capability. And all 3 of them are showing capabilities of getting DEFCON. You could just set and forget those 3 every week with your 5 DEFCON defenders, and I think you'd probably do pretty well. You might be able to find midfielders with higher ceilings, and I'll say Mbeumo's on this chart, 3.12 XGI so far is I think it's the 2nd in the league, and the best in the league. He's got the best in the league for those that don't take penalties. His ceiling is very good, nowhere near DEFCON. 6-2, 1-2-2 so far in terms of his contributions. So all of his threat really is on attacking returns. We saw last year, I think at the back end of last year, I did very well out of owning Jared Bowen. I think from game week 30 to 38, you got something like 6 goals or something. So this is what you're looking at again now to take on these DEFCON midfielders, because again, I think it's quite awkward right now and hard to justify not just picking Bruno, Ndiaye and Semenyo. And knowing that each week, probably one of them, maybe 2 of them is going to get DEFCON. One of them might get a penalty, and just in general play, one of them might get something else. Can you find a midfielder or midfielders to get enough goals in a sequence to outscore that. Because these guys, again, in midfield are probably going to average 5-6 points a game because they might keep a clean sheet, they might get DEFCON, they'll nab the odd attacking return, etc., etc. You're looking at probably 5-6 points a game. Certain players, if they're scoring every other week, getting sort of 2 attacking returns every 3 weeks, can outscore that. Can you identify those players and have them as that's the way to beat the template again? The template will get you so far, 100k finish, 50k finish. If you want top 20k, top 10k, you need to identify players with higher ceilings. That's the question again here for the alternate view. That there's DEFCON security from the likes of Bruno and Ndiaye, but let's be fair, Everton and Man United aren't the best attacking teams right now. So they'll tick along. They'll probably get their DEFCON relatively often. They'll get a share of attacking returns, but I don't see them getting the monster hauls. I don't see them getting 30 points in 3 game weeks. Again, can you jump around here, players that can do that? Because these guys will get like 18 points, 20 points in 3 game weeks. To beat them, can you find that player or players that can get 30? And this comes down to mindset, I think, and attitude towards the game here. Do you want to be a bit dull, a bit boring, follow the template, and ultimately you play the game to get points? But equally, I play the game to have fun. I play the game to take risk. I play the game to celebrate certain things. So points are obviously one thing. And obviously you want as high a rank as possible. You might be in cash mini leagues and things like that. But equally, you want to go into a Saturday afternoon and cheer on a goal for your players. You don't want to be constantly looking at any number of websites that update on DEFCON contributions and think, oh, this is really good. I've got Elliot Anderson. He's on 7 DEFCONs at 60 minutes. And then basically cheering when the page refreshes every 5 minutes. And now he's got 8 defensive contributions. Is that what we've resorted to here? That's not fun to me. So the balance here is mixing the fun with the necessary and with the dull. And you have to work out where on that spectrum and on that sort of seesaw you want to be. Some people will be very much like, I want points, therefore I'm going to go full template, full dull. Other people will be like, I'm not going to accept DEFCON for what it is. I'm going to go full template and try and beat it that way. I don't think that's the way either. You need to be in the middle somewhere. You may lean more towards one side, and you have to work out as a manager what you are, how you want to play the game, how much fun you want to have, and what constitutes fun for you. Is it celebrating attacking returns? Is it celebrating points? Is it getting big hauls from certain players occasionally, or is it getting 4 points every week from a big block of players? But you can beat the template here by picking certain players with higher ceilings. So here I've made a draft that I could afford right now. I'm not going to. I played my wild card last week. But I've touched on some of this already in this pod about thoughts. So for those on audio, it's Raya and Dubravka as the 2 keepers. Back 5, all DEFCON here. Senesi, Richards, Anderson, Tarkovsky, Michele. Then those DEFCON 3 in midfield, Semenyo, Bruno and Ndiaye. And with this, you can afford Mo Salah if you're going to play 5-4-1. So you've got 5 DEFCON defenders, 3 DEFCON midfielders. You can still have Salah, and you just put Haaland up front by himself. This team can still afford a playable bench as well. Dewsbury Hall there, Thiago from Brentford and Lyle Foster all playing right now. But you're basically just playing a dead team here. You're playing 4-5-1 every week with Dewsbury Hall, Thiago, Foster on the bench should a week someone doesn't play for whatever reason. Haaland's there as a lock captain. What's going to happen? Those back 5 defenders are probably going to deliver 25 to 30 points each week. So they've all got probably 4 of them every week's going to get DEFCON. You probably get 1 or 2 clean sheets each week off of them. You might get, say, the odd attacking return. In goal, Raya or Donnarumma. I think either or. Donnarumma probably more likely to get save points, but probably likely to keep slightly fewer clean sheets than Raya would be my assessment. But the save points could match the slight deduction of clean sheets. But you can afford the expensive keeper here. Why pay 4.5 when you can have a more premium keeper who's going to keep more clean sheets? But yeah, pick the back 5. Play the midfield have got rounded routes to points. Semenyo, Bruno, Ndiaye take penalties. Reasonable from open play for assists and goals. And getting DEFCON, just play them all the time. Don't worry about who the fixture is. They might get something. Salah's there as Could be anyone. I think this is where the transfers would be here, because the Salah spot is rotatable. Because you're not making transfers on 95% of this team, you're basically pairing up Salah with the Thiago spot up front. So you're locking in whatever that is, around 20 million, 20.5 million on 2 spots. So let's just say it's Salah and Thiago for now. In a couple of weeks, you might want Isak. In a couple of weeks, you might want Gyökeres, someone like that. When that happens, you just switch them both. Thiago becomes the striker you want. Salah gets downgraded to whatever's needed in midfield. And he just moves to 5-3-2 at that point. You stay with the back five. You stay with the 3 DEFCON midfielders. And your high upside punt spot is no longer a midfielder in Salah. It's now a striker in Gyökeres or Joel Pedro, whoever you want it to be. But that's basically your decision here, is when you want to make 2 transfers to basically change your team structure to play 5-3-2 or 5-4-1 to get the best attacking upside player in for the next block of games. Because everyone else in your team is relatively fixed. Obviously, if there's an injury, you might need to make a move. But most weeks you're rolling is probably the top and bottom of this, which I think is, say, just not how I like to play the game, but I can accept and appreciate that might be the way to get the most points. But how much fun are you going to have playing the game each week? You're going to become a massive casual here that probably just needs to make sure 15 minutes before the deadline each week that your captain's not been changed and you haven't got any flags. And is there a bigger upside pick you want than, in this case, Mo Salah? So, but this team, I think, would do quite well. On to my decisions here. So this was my wild card from last week. There's a fair mix here of what I would call template steady picks and differentials. So I've got Romero in my defence, so I thought was a bit more differential than the extra boring DEFCON pick, because the way Tottenham play are more leaning towards goals from defenders and goals from set pieces. So I took a chance there. And Waymo's in the midfield because, again, his ceiling, I think, is higher. And I've gone with Gyökeres and Joel Pedro in the same way. And I'm looking at playing 4, and I'm still willing to play 3 at the back. So thoughts now on what I'm doing now. So I say Cole Palmer, I don't think we've had full clarification yet how long he's out for. There's been various rumours around groin injuries in 3 to 6 weeks. I haven't heard anything concrete, but I think he probably needs to go. So how do I play this? So I've got Dewsbury Hall first on the bench, taking a share of set pieces for Everton. Really nice home game against West Ham, who I'm led to believe are conceding quite a lot of goals from set pieces. So probably a reasonable fixture for Dewsbury Hall to get more than just appearance points. I could just roll the transfer, play Dewsbury Hall and deal with Palmer next week. And next week, Arsenal's fixtures massively improve. We get a week more information on the likes of Saka, on the likes of Eze and people like that. And I could just then go in with triple Arsenal for their good run and have 2 attackers. Not sure how I feel about that, but it's a clear option to do that. The logical move, price point wise, would be to go to Bruno Fernandes. I think, obviously spoken about him already on this pod in terms of being well-rounded in terms of his routes to points. Do I really want to spend 16 million on 2 Man United players right now? No. But, and is it pushing me more in the direction of too much template and not enough differential? I think for me, it probably is. So I'm less willing to do that, but it's probably the right thing to do again. But is it the thing I want to do? No. Same for Ndiaye. I think he's logically a good pick, particularly as we sort of get nearer to Christmas and you have more concerns around minutes and stuff. Picking players with decent upside who are decent talisman for average teams is never a bad idea. I think at some point he's probably going to become useful. I could just fix that now. But the way my mind is right now is I think I've got Reinders wrong. I think he's still a good pick. I still think he's probably a 6.5, 7 million mid that's been underpriced. And I'm not going to clearly sell him now because he's got Burnley this week. And the sort of game where his third man runs and sort of late arrivals in the box and ball carrying could be an extra asset. I think he'll do quite well in this game, personally. But if you look at his ceiling and his upside over a block, he isn't going to match the Elliot Andersons and the Caicedos. So I think at this price point in my team, I'm probably of the mindset now that should become a safer pick. Take the 150 points offered by an Elliot Anderson, by a Caicedo, rather than chase the 170, 180 points Reinders could get. But in reality, he's more likely to probably end the season 120, 130. If he got something like 8 goals, 5 assists over a season, I think that would be considered fairly helpful, fairly healthy, fairly good return for that price point. But that's not going to get him enough points to match the DEFCON of the others. So I think the ceiling of Reinders isn't as high as the ceiling of higher price players. So I think in a roundabout way, I've got that decision wrong on wildcard. That spot in my team should have been a safer player rather than sort of a punty player, an upside chasing player. So I think I'm quite keen to fix that soon. Not this week, because obviously Man City have got Burnley. So if that spot becomes template and DEFCON, should we say, then this Palmer spot I don't want to become DEFCON. I've got Mbeumo, who I'm viewing as high ceiling, punty, chasing a big haul. And I think this Palmer spot also should become that. So I'm looking at Phil Foden here for these next 2 weeks. Obviously, it's triple Man City attack. This would be against Burnley. At the moment, he's placing the team feels as secure as it's likely to be. Obviously, it's Pep, so you can't trust anything. But with Marmoush out, with Xerxes out, they're the two obvious candidates that might play as one of these number 10s/8s. Of course, Pep being Pep could use Kovacic, Nico Gonzalez, someone, Bernardo even in that sort of role. But I don't think those players naturally have the instincts and the attributes to play as basically the foil to Haaland, as the second striker, if you want to call it that, the link player. So I think for the moment, Foden's quite nailed. City have fallen into a tactic that's working for them now. Again, it's Pep. You can't guarantee 1 week to the next he's going to maintain something, even if it's working. But for the moment, I've got a reasonable amount of trust here that City will carry on playing in the way we're used to, with a more stable back four, out-and-out wingers in Doku and whether it's going to be Bob or Savinho, whether it's going to be like that. And we're going to get these two sort of central 8/10s with Reinders and Foden. Foden in particular, I think, is necessary for them right now to link with Haaland in this shape. Obviously, when Marmoush comes back in particular, he becomes a big threat to those minutes in that role. But he's out, I think, until the international break. So for the next 2 weeks here, Phil Foden, I think, is a valid punt. 2 really good fixtures for his profile. 2 fairly good fixtures for his minutes. I'm not saying he'll play 90 in both, but I think I'd be quite confident we'll get 70, 75 minutes in each game from him. And he is the sort of player we've seen before who can get 2 and 3 attacking returns in a game. If he plays the next 2 weeks, he could easily walk away with 20 points here, which will outscore the DEFCON guys. And that feels more fun to me. That feels more valuable to me. So at the moment, that's my most likely move here, is to move Palmer to Foden and have Foden and Mbeumo in those 2 attacking spots, chasing big returns and hauls. What it does mean, though, in the next sort of block of 3-4 weeks, I'm probably booking in quite a few transfers. Foden is quite short term. Who knows when he'll be out of the team, but I think you'll know week to week that he's at risk. So I think he's good for the next 2. Everton, I think, the game in game week 8 after the international break. He may start that, but then he'll be under threat from others. So I think sort of game week 8, game week 9, if I buy him, he's going to be a sell. Reinders, I think I need to correct that. I'd like that to be a DEFCON spot. If I can get that spot up to Ilian Ndiaye, I think I'd like to. But I may have to settle for Elliot Anderson or Moises Caicedo, who are, say, slightly deeper players, no penalties, maybe more rotatable in their teams as well with Europe and things. So is that transfer? I've obviously still got Isak on radar that at some point I think I'm going to need to go to him. I will try and keep flexibility around doing it from both Pedro or Gyökeres, but I think if I make some of these other moves, it will have to be from Gyökeres, which again I'm open to. But before I know it here, say Palmer to Foden uses my transfer this week. I don't have any transfers in the bank. And then I'm looking at doing Foden out to whoever that's going to be, an Arsenal mid, to whoever else is going to be, who I see as having a higher ceiling in a couple of weeks' time. Maybe Anthony Gordon or something at that point, who knows? But that spot is another transfer. Reinders to Ndiaye or to Elliot Anderson, Caicedo is another transfer. Gyökeres to Isak is another transfer. So again, the template of the game right now is more DEFCON picks, role transfers. And I don't want to fully embrace that. I want to accept it, but not fully embrace it. But where am I going to be in sort of game week 12 here? If I don't have as many DEFCON picks as others, I need to make more general transfers than others. I'm going to get to game week 12 with maybe 1, maybe 2 transfers to use, when others have probably got to 4 or 5 transfers that are wildcarding now. How disadvantaged am I going to be by being in that position? I'm keen to chase the points now and play what's right in front of me. Foden for 2 weeks feels valid as a punt. But there is a part of me that is still debating. Do I just put Palmer to Njaya now? Avoids a transfer down the line. If I get an injury, so I've already had an injury now with Palmer 1 week after wildcard. If let's just say Joel Pedro gets injured, he's going to need dealing with, etc., etc. Booking in loosely too many transfers is probably a bit dangerous. I could just keep Reinders for longer. That's not necessary, maybe, to move him on. So there's solutions here. But I'm just trying to think what the landscape of the game is going to look like in 4 or 5 weeks' time. I don't want to leave myself massively up against it compared to others are needing hits to sort of not mimic what they're doing, because I don't want to play the game the same way as the template crew. I don't want to be another one of those content creators that are all basically picking the same team every week. I want my content to be a bit different. I want my decision making to be a bit different. And maybe that will help grow the channel. Right? I'm doing okay, but the channel isn't growing maybe at the rate I hoped it would. But if I've got different decisions to make every week and a different strategy and structure to other content creators, my content may generally become different enough and more noteworthy, shall we say, than others. So, yeah, that's where we are at the moment. So, in terms of my decisions, what do? I'm thinking right now, do Palmer to Foden and treat that as a big differential. But for you, as the listener here, I think your decisions are, how do you want to play the game? Do you want to go full template? Do you want to leave 1 or 2 spots open as flexi rotation transfer spots? Do you want to treat it more like a game of 5-a-side, which I think is where I am at the moment? Leave the defence alone, but have enough rotating spots around midfield and strikers that not too many players have essentially become locked, and you want some variety and some options to sell. But just understand right now that the game is at risk of becoming quite boring and quite dull. You have the capability of not allowing that to happen to you by certain decisions you make and decisions you make around playing the game. If you like dull and you like safe points and regular points, that's good. But I am not quite in that bracket. So I'm looking for a different way to play to beat the template. I think you can treat it like a game of 5-a-side to do that. That's it for this one. Hopefully it's not too dreary. There's enough positivity in this to make the game exciting still. We'll be back next week. I don't know what I'm going to look at yet, but we'll see what topics are on and what other content creators are talking about and see if there's anything to come from that. But yeah, until then, enjoy your game week. I know there's a lot of you on wildcard, I think, now, so hope that goes well and your final planning is successful. And I'll be back next week with another pod. Thanks, everyone. Speak to you soon. Let's do this.